What is up, guys? Today I've got another deck tech for you, similar to the previous one where the previous deck tech we were looking at prototypes and how to use all the prototypes. Today's video is Myojins. We are trying to use all the Myojins in today's deck tech. I have this deck in paper myself. I've played it a few times at my LGS. It works really well. It's a ton of fun. So check out the video and I hope you enjoy the deck tech. To begin, what do we want to do with this deck? Firstly, we want to cast Myojins and we want to cast a lot of them. There are all the Myojins in this deck, so we want to cast as many as possible. Secondly, we want to proliferate the indestructible and divinity counters on the Myojins so we can use their abilities multiple times. And then thirdly, we're going to use some really interesting interactions between cards so we can maximize our benefit off of these Myojins. This is a 5-color deck because we are playing all the Myojins, and the best commander for this has got to be Jodah, Archmage Eternal. It turns all of our costs of spells into our hand into Wooburg instead while it is in play, so we can cast our Myojins, which are very expensive, for Wooburg instead. We are playing all the Myojins. This includes all the old Myojins and all of the new Myojins. The old Myojins use divinity counters and the new ones use indestructible counters, so there is a workaround here where we have to include cards that synergize with divinity counters, and then we also have to include cards that work with indestructible counters so we can maximize the benefits of each of these Myojins depending on whether it is the old cycle or the new cycle. Step 2, we want to proliferate. There are a ton of proliferate effects in this deck. Flux Channeler and Evolution Sage allow us to proliferate multiple times, and Tezzeret's Gambit functions as a draw spell in the deck as well. We also have Contagion Clasp, Khan's Bastion, and Plane-Wide Celebration to proliferate. Plane-Wide Celebration will cost Wooburg instead of the 7 mana if we have Jodah in play, and we can proliferate 4 times, which is absolutely fantastic. We can also, in the same category, add counters to our Myojins as well. So Lae'zel, Vlaakith's Champion, will add an additional counter when a creature enters. Kindred Boon allows us to place divinity counters onto different creatures and they get indestructible. And That Which Was Taken also allows us to place divinity counters onto the Myojins or other permanents to give them indestructible. We can also move counters around, so if we are placing indestructible or divinity counters on our permanents, we can use cards like Fate Transfer, Resourceful Defense, and Nesting Grounds to move these counters to give other things indestructible, which is great as well. Resourceful Defense doubles as a protection spell because we can move the counters to Jodah, so Jodah becomes indestructible, which is very nice. And then how are we going to profit most off of this? Firstly, I'd like to start with Fate Transfer. It is absolutely insane in this deck. If we have a Myojin in play, for example, a Myojin of Grim Betrayal, and we've managed to proliferate, so it's got a couple of indestructible counters on it, but nothing's dying, so we can't use the indestructible counters to benefit us, then we can Fate Transfer to move all of those indestructible counters onto another Myojin that uses indestructible counters. For example, Myojin of Roaring Blades. This will enter with 1 counter. Then we can use Fate Transfer to move all of the indestructible counters onto the Myojin of Roaring Blades, and then we can activate the Myojin multiple times to deal a ton of damage. That is quite an interesting mechanic that we've got in this deck using Fate Transfer, so we can use one of the Myojins multiple times to really take over a game. Another key include in this deck is Morophon the Boundless. This is the best card in the deck because when we cast it, we name Spirit as the creature type and it reduces our spirits by Wooburg. Jodah allows us to cast all our spells for Wooburg, and Morophon then essentially makes all of our Myojins free, which is absolutely insane. I've also got Morite of the Frost in here, which is another changeling, and we can use it to copy a permanent. So, for example, if a Myojin has entered with a divinity or indestructible, we then can remove it to activate it, and then when we cast Morite of the Frost, we copy that Myojin. The legend rule makes us sacrifice one of them. We sacrifice the one we've already used, and then Morite will enter with a divinity or indestructible counter, and we can reuse that Myojin again. Really cool interaction is that they are both changelings. So I've included Kataran Summons in the deck, which is a 1 black sorcery that tutors a mercenary to hand. So for this, for 1 black mana, we can find Morophon or Morite of the Frost from our deck straight to hand, which is a fantastic rate. Also, we have the World Tree in the deck, which is fantastic in a 5-color deck anyway because it fixes us for colors, And late in the game, if we really need to, we can pay double Wooburg and sacrifice it to get any number of gods from our deck into play. And that means we can get Morite and Morophon straight out of the deck into play. And if we have Myojins in hand, that can get out of hand. In terms of card draw, because it's a 5-color deck, you can go in any direction. But there's two that I'd just like to speak about quickly. This is Peer into the Abyss and Painful Truths. Peer into the Abyss is a 7-mana sorcery that draws half of our deck. It is absolutely insane. If we are able to draw into a few Myojins and Morophon after paying Wooburg for Peer into the Abyss, we can then pay Wooburg for the Morophon, and all the Myojins we just drew then are free, and there's some really neat interactions you can do between some of them. And then Painful Truths is a 3-mana sorcery that you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of colors you spend to cast this spell. So early in the game, we can spend 3 colors to draw 3, but later we can use Jodah's effect and pay Wooburg, which means we've paid 5 different colors to cast it, which means it becomes a draw 5. Also a really interesting interaction with Jodah. And then for ramp, it's standard ramp in 5-color decks. You can play basically whatever you'd like. Cards that fix you for colors like Birds of Paradise or Ornithopter of Paradise are obviously great. But then Timeless Lotus and Gigantha are really, really great in the deck because they tap 4 Wooburg. So after Jodah comes out, we can immediately tap these 4 Wooburg to cast something. And then removal, because of Jodah's effect, we can place some of the most expensive giant removal spells in the format in the deck. I've combined some of these with really efficient cheap removals as well, such as Swords to Plowshares and Beast Within. And then cards like Ingaruk's Wake or Plague Wind, really giant one-sided board wipes that can really throw our opponents off guard, are fantastic as well. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck tech. See if you want to build it for yourself. Give it a go. Let me know in the comments below what decks you'd like to see in the future. I have quite a few decks that I'm going to do deck techs on. So stick around, hit the like and subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.